Consider a couple of things. Consider how societies, most of them, if not the world over, feel about the murder of women, mostly at the hands of men. They've even come up with a whole term for it. It's called femicide.
Now, the rising trend of women being found gruesomely murdered in Kenya has raised questions on a worrying trend in the country. The UN describes femicide as the intentional killing of women driven by stereotyped gender roles. It's the most extreme form of gender-based violence. Now, the latest data on femicide in Kenya indicates a significant concern regarding gender-based violence.
Elsewhere, Kenya's policing is once again in the spotlight after people attending an anti-femicide march were tear-gassed by officers. Several hundred people had gathered in the capital, Nairobi, to take part in the demonstration, which reports say was peaceful.
Now, chaos erupted during the End Femicide protests in Nairobi's central business district, with protesters taking part in the demos forced to flee after police lobbed tear gas canisters at them. Several people were injured as others were arrested following the Tuesday demos. The protests had been organized to raise awareness about the rising incidence of femicide and gender-based violence in Kenya, coinciding with the conclusion of the 16 Days of Activism campaign.
A victim of femicide was buried by her loved ones at the Langata Cemetery on Saturday. Abdinur Deka, is one of many females who've been killed at the hands of intimate partners in the last year alone. An escalation which has necessitated a ramp-up of the campaign to end femicide during the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence.
Is a proposal to establish a special parliamentary committee to address cases of murder and violence against women was put forward during a session that brought together lawmakers, government agencies and a range of human rights organizations. The issue of femicide was highlighted as an urgent crisis that demands immediate action. Additionally, a call was made to launch a nationwide campaign aimed at mobilizing communities in the fight against gender-based violence.
Or rather did apprehend Hashim Dagane Mohamed, the suspect in the murder of her mother, her daughter and her niece in Nairobi's Eastleigh estate. This as President William Ruto revealed plans for the formation of a special unit within the National Police Service to deal with gender-based violence cases amid a surge in reports of femicide incidents. President Ruto further cautioned that cases of femicide will be curbed if parents take a front row in offering guidance to their children.
Meant to arrest the rising cases of murders of women and girls across the country. Human rights organizations, including the Federation of Women Lawyers of Kenya, FIDA, now want these femicide cases, which currently stand at 30, declared a national disaster. FIDA, alongside the Law Society of Kenya and 8 other human rights bodies, have faulted the government for failing to address the murders with the seriousness they deserve. And as Brenda Wanga now reports, FIDA also intends to introduce femicide as a standalone crime within the penal code.
The family of Seth Njeri, who was killed a week ago, is urging the Directorate of Criminal Investigations to expedite the resolution of all pending femicide cases and ensure the perpetrators are brought to book. Speaking during a candle lighting ceremony for the slain 23-year-old, the only child of Kirinyaga's nominated MCA Lucy Njeri, the mourners expressed their concern in the rising cases of young girls being killed while their perpetrators are still walking scot-free.
We bring you inside a place where women are under siege. It's been called the most dangerous place on earth to be a woman. And it's not a distant land oceans away. It's only 2,000 miles from Texas, which is why thousands of women are fleeing to our shores to escape a machismo culture racked by gang violence. We bring you to Honduras to investigate femicide, an untold war.
You see, violent crime is a male issue. If that's something you're willing to explore, there are multiple videos on this channel on the same. Homicide, which is part of violent crime, is a male issue, with majority of homicide victims, upwards of 90% in some areas, being men. If you want to be fixated on the fact that majority of homicide perpetrators are men, remember, majority of slut-shaming against women is by fellow women, a class war and a way women go about fighting for potential mates. Also, human resource is a female-dominated field the next time you want to complain about the gender pay gap. Anyway, How do you take a majority male issue and turn it into a female issue? Get a new name for it. You see, a woman's life is worth more than a man's life, and men are in the front lines ensuring they're sacrificing their lives for women's. You know why? Because men hate women, misogyny to put it plainly. Around 60% of domestic violence victims are women, hence, domestic violence is a female issue. Upwards of 75% of SA victims are women, hence, SA is a female issue. 90% of homicide victims are men, yet women are leading that discussion, diverting the attention towards them. In Kenya, when over 30 male bodies were pulled from a river over a shorter period of time, the victim's gender never came up. Instead, the discussion surrounded extrajudicial
gives life to thousands of people who live near its banks. But for months now, it has gained a reputation as a river of death. This is a body trapped between the rocks, prevented from flowing further downstream. Nearly every month, at least 2 bodies are retrieved from River Yala's depths. We keep searching. By the riverbank, one more decomposing body, reduced nearly to a skeleton. It may have been washed up here by the high tides, says my local guide. No one yet knows who they are or how they died. This man is the local diver who has been retrieving bodies from the river for over 20 years.
Previously, I would recover bodies, and within a month of taking them to the mortuary, they would be claimed. This time, it has taken very long. Everyone who comes says, "This isn't my relative."
Now families missing loved ones are trooping to the mortuary. This man hasn't seen his brother since he was allegedly abducted in August 2020.
2 saloon cars hijacked him. We don't know the plate numbers, but they were white and maroon. Since then, we have never seen our beloved.
Police have now begun identifying the bodies, a process authorities say may be complicated by their state of decomposition and how far they may have traveled downstream.
When you've looked at the state of these are bodies that have been in various forms of decomposing. It's a serious challenge, and we normally rely on the issues of the fingerprinting, and then we send this to our national databases in Nairobi. But when the fingerprints are not there, the task becomes quite enormous.
At the Yala Sub-County Hospital mortuary in Gem in Siaya County, where 20 unmarked bodies lie. 19 of the bodies, according to the hospital's authority, were retrieved from River Yala and brought in by police, marked unknown, sparking fear and panic among residents and human rights activists.
Behind the beautiful Ndanu Falls on River Yala, there is a disturbing discovery. A tale of dumped bodies whose identity remains unknown. This man, Nicholas Okero, a resident and a diver, has been helping police retrieve the bodies whenever they are spotted floating on the waters.
Jumapili nilitoa mwili hapa kwa intake hapa. Ile imetupwa tu, wamefunga macho, vitu kama hizo tu. Sasa hapa tumetoa mwili karibu 31.
Nicholas's claims are corroborated by Dr. Bruno Okal, the medical superintendent of Yala Sub-County Hospital, who confirmed to NTV that there were 20 unidentified bodies at the mortuary, 19 of which were retrieved from River Yala within the last 3 months. Dr. Okal, who declined to appear on camera, further said that soon the hospital will dispose of them according to the law on unclaimed bodies. But some human rights activists who visited the scene on Monday disagreed.
Kila mtu ambaye ako kwa nchi hii ako na fingerprints. So register of persons, kuja chukua fingerprints, enda kwa database angalia ni akina nani. Na zile mwili ziko pale hazijahifadhiwa vizuri. So in another maybe couple of weeks zitakuwa buried in an unmarked grave. So why can't the government move fast to get those people unless it's the government killing them?
Last Thursday, 4 bodies were retrieved from the river next to Ndanu Falls by local divers. A day before that, 3 bodies were pulled out of the water with their hands tied to their backs, while some had deep wounds on the head. They were all males.
What we know is that there is a double cabin and a pro box that have been spotted on different dates. Individuals dumping bodies at the bridge into River Yala. According to local communities, this happens in the dead of the night between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m.
Usiku saa 9 saa 10 hivi mpaka saa 11. Juzi walitupa mzee ingine hapo, ako na kipara, walitupa mzee ingine hapo asubuhi, hata watoto ndio waliona wakienda shule. Sasa hatujui hao watu wanatoka wapi.
Recently, around 10 or so female bodies were pulled from an abandoned quarry, and the Kenyan media and creators didn't hesitate calling it femicide.
Shock after 10 bodies were retrieved from a small dam in Kware area of Mukuru, Kwanjenga, Nairobi. Shockingly, all the bodies were female and had been dismembered in the most gruesome manner and wrapped in gunny bags. Some of the bodies cannot be recognized. This dreadful revelation raises questions about who is behind these horrific killings and why they committed such atrocities in the most inhumane way.
Dennis Njogu is risking it all to retrieve bodies from the Kware dump site in Mukuru, Kwanjenga. This is the 8th body he has retrieved since daybreak. Suspended on a rope tied to his chest and armed with only a twig, he descends into the dump site to do what everyone else is too scared to do, even the police.
Mwili moja ndio tumepata ikiwa full, ingine tumepata hizi zingine ni nusu. Na wote ni wanawake. Pati ya chini unapata kichwa na hii body ya juu ni nusu na miguu ya huku ni nusu.
If only this dump site could speak, perhaps answers would emerge on how this horror was executed so inhumanly. Behind every body retrieved here is a family in distress, searching for their missing kin. The pain among these residents is palpable.
Chenye inatokea sana hapa Kware, ikifika wakati kama saa 1, kupita hapa ni ngumu. Unaambiwanga kama unaongea kwa simu, madam maliza na utupe hiyo simu. Sasa tunaogopa kupita hapa, ikifika saa 1, kuanzia saa 1 na kuelekea mpaka saa 3. Hii barabara ni mbaya sana.
Ordinarily, this is the main dump site here, and residents cannot comprehend how this went unnoticed. The Kware police station is less than 200 meters from this location. A woman searching for her kin is said to have led residents to this discovery.
Ishimo imekuwa na history ya kutoka kitambo watu wa wanarushwa hapa ndani. So I guess hata wewe unaweza tumia this place kwa sababu ni kitu imekuwa ina happen. Alafu hapa hivi by the time sasa kuje kurealize kuna mtu hapo ndani, unacheki itakuwa ni kitambo ama itaenda masiku itakuwa imeenda.
What are the police doing? How is it that a quarry or a pit next to your station is being used to dump bodies? So these are questions that we have to confirm.
It is the manner and pattern of execution that complicates the investigations. The bodies retrieved today were all female and had been all dismembered. Could there be more to this than meets the eye?
Tunasikia vibaya kama wanawake tumepatikana wengi hapo. Hakuna mwanaume hata mmoja. Ni wanawake tupu tumepatikana hapo.
Detectives, including the head of homicide at DCI Martin Yoguto, who arrived at the scene, were nearly attacked by angry residents demanding answers. The bodies were taken to City Mortuary, awaiting post-mortem examinations. Missing Voices, an organization that documents enforced disappearances, says that over 350 people have disappeared in the last 5 years. The recent Gen Z protest saw scores of protesters go missing, and some are yet to be found. This revelation raises serious questions.
Six bodies in total in the morning. 5 are female and 1 is male, and most of them have got very serious injuries and cut. And we insisted that now the police has to come and comb this place and do a thorough search.
If you doubted that a woman's life is worth more than a man's, well, there you have it. Anyway, back to our considerations. Have you considered how societies feel about women suffering abuse or death at the hands of men?
Dismembered bodies of at least 6 women found dumped in a quarry in Kware in July, and the suspected murderer, Collins Jumaisi, still at large. Human bones stripped of their flesh and later found to be those of 26-year-old Deka Abdi Nur, discovered at the Langata Cemetery earlier this month. A mother, 38-year-old Waris Daoud, her 12-year-old daughter, Nusaiba Dahir, and 23-year-old niece, Amina Abdi Rashid, go missing from Eastleigh last month and are later found tortured, sexually assaulted, and murdered. Olympic marathon runner Rebecca Cheptegei fatally set ablaze by her ex-boyfriend the month before that. Right from the start of the year, the female body count has piled up. Starlet Wahoo, Rita Waeni, whose decapitated body was found in the trash of a short-term rental, taxi driver Victoria Mumbua, who went to work in late September and never returned home to her children. Seth Nyakionjeri, Lilian Acheng Aluko, all killed in the last few months. Africa Data Hub puts the number of femicides committed in Kenya between January 2016 and December of 2023 at over 500. According to the United Nations, a woman is killed by her intimate partner or family every 10 minutes globally. In response, the government of Kenya has made several commitments, including stricter safety regulations for short-term rentals, 100 million shillings for a safe space advocacy campaign during the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, and a revival of the abandoned gender desks at police stations, which are to extend to hospitals. But is it enough to end femicide?
A somber mood, a broken family, a myriad of unanswered questions, a battle to believe that justice will be delivered as desired. The family and friends of 23-year-old Seth Nyakionjeri gathered to hold a candle lighting ceremony in honor of the slain girl. In their grieving, they reminisced over the cherished memories they now hold so dear and expressed the agony of unanswered questions and a drugging system.
The problem we are having is that the homicide cases are too many. If you go, you do a research in Thika, there is no case that has ever been finished. I mean, has never been executed. And that is the problem we are having, because the more we are piling up homicide cases, the more these culprits and perpetrators are walking scot-free on the road, and the more they are continuing doing these crimes. And the proceeds they are getting from these crimes, probably they are compromising with the people who are supposed even to do the action. So I would urge the government to ensure that homicide cases are given priority.
Seth's body was discovered on Monday, October 14th, by her friend Favor Mwende in a rented room in Biafra Estate, Thika. A post-mortem examination revealed that she died due to lack of oxygen caused by strangulation. Lucy Njeri, Nyakio's mother, shared that the homicide team from the Directorate of Criminal Investigation Headquarters has taken over the case after she raised concerns about how officers in Thika were handling the case. While she suffered a painful death, her life was described as a joy and a blessing to many.
Alikuwa mtoto mzuri, alikuwa yuwasikiza wazazi wake, alikuwa mtoto mshangamfu, na hakuwa na vita na mtu yeyote.
Seth Nyakio alikuanga mshirika wetu katika kundi la vijana kwa kanisa. Alikuwa mkakamafu kwa imani na pia alikuwa mpenda maendeleo sana.
The suspect, who is reportedly in police custody, allegedly invited Seth to a swimming party before her lifeless body was found, speaking to the concerns around safety of girls and women and the unsettling situation of femicide.
I would request our youths, one, to take care of themselves wherever they are, whether they are in school, whether they are working, so that we don't experience such. I would also ask the parents to counsel their children properly.
A mother's pain is evident as she struggles to watch the casket bearing her late daughter's remain wheeled into the church for her final service. The late Seth Nyakio, daughter of nominated Kirinyaga County MCA, is one of the latest women to meet their demise in a gruesome manner in the recent spate of killings targeting women and girls. She was murdered at a rental house in Thika town.
I can see so many faces.
And I'm telling you, amongst us, there are people who are named in the suspect of the said murder.
She is amongst the nearly 10 women who have been killed in just a fortnight across the country and a multitude others from the beginning of this year.
In 2024, so far FIDA Kenya is aware of at least 30 cases of women who have died in the hands of intimate partners as a result of domestic violence and femicide.
Despite these high numbers of deaths, the law enforcement agencies stand accused of being lax in their response.
These cases have been reported to the National Police Service, but unfortunately, the pace of investigations is excruciatingly slow.
Many times we are told no stone will be left unturned. Alafu wiki moja, wiki mbili, na amewauliza, do you see these stones being turned? We pray and hope that this will indeed be the last time.
Human rights organizations say the government has not only failed to protect the women and the girls from such attacks, but has also failed to prosecute those suspected to have committed these crimes against women. Case in point, the arrest and mysterious escape of the main suspect in the Kware's bodies, Collins Jumaisi, whose whereabouts remain unknown nearly 2 months after his escape.
Further, the National Police Service is yet to issue a comprehensive statement on the circumstances that led to his escape and steps towards his rearrest and prosecution.
Now the organizations want this issue addressed by the highest office in the land.
The president should officially declare femicide a national crisis and a disaster, assuring the public that his administration is working actively to protect women and girls across the nation.
Besides that, the organizations also want the president to appoint a gender cabinet secretary, provide adequate updates on investigations into femicide cases, and take concrete action to address overall gender-based violence. In the meantime, the organizations say they will be taking the battle to the legal fields.
Let us rethink femicide as a crime, as a standalone crime, because what is happening is that some of these suspects, when they are arraigned in court, they are charged with the normal, murder.
The government has 30 days to act or face protests by women and girls that will be organized by these human rights organizations. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV.
Those who had gathered were trying to bring attention to the issue of femicide. This is the international killing of females and girls, intentional killing of females and girls on account of their gender, such as intimate partner violence or so-called honor killings. The Kenya National Police Service says that between August and October, there were nearly 100 confirmed cases of femicide in the country. UN statistics also show that there are a daily average of 140 femicide cases globally.
These women are protesting against the killing of women and girls in Kenya. Police say 97 women have been killed in the last 3 months, some in brutal ways. The march was supposed to mark the start of 16 days of activism as part of a UN campaign against gender-based violence. But this is what happened in the city center as women were gathering. Police fired tear gas at them even before they could start. It's not clear why.
They're supposed to be protecting us, but they're the ones perpetrating violence against us. So we want accountability.
We have been witnessing hundreds of protesters gathering here in the central business district protesting an end to femicide. There's also been a back and forth between the police and the protesters, with the police shooting us tear gas.
I'm here to fight for the rights of women because we don't deserve to be killed. I don't know why we're being tear gassed because, as you can see, all we have is water and placards. It's supposed to be a peaceful protest. I'm here on the streets to fight for my generation. The women that will come after me need to find a better environment for them to exist. So that's why I'm in the streets today.
According to the Kenyan police, in the last 3 months alone, 97 women have been killed in the country. The UN says figures of intimate partner and family-related femicide were highest in Africa in 2023, with over 21,000 women killed. Lucy Njeri's 23-year-old daughter was found dead in October 2024, allegedly killed by a friend.
The most painful moment is when you enter in the mortuary and find your daughter or your loved one lying in that thing of the mortuary. Nyakio was charming. Nyakio was bubbly. Nyakio was the most beautiful girl in this world. People loved her so much. She was very social. Life has been very hard emotionally. and psychologically.
The police appealed for help on social media, seeking the public's help to find their main suspect. But some activists believe the force should do better in handling femicide cases. In August 2024, an alleged serial killer of 42 women escaped police custody and remains at large.
First, declare femicide a national disaster. If a woman is being killed every other day, what does that mean? If it was any other pandemic, wouldn't the government have mitigated? They have done nothing to mitigate against femicide.
Kenyan President William Ruto has pledged nearly $800,000 to a government campaign called Safe Homes, Safe Spaces. It aims to combat femicide and support victims of domestic violence.
There's people who run safe houses. We haven't received, no one has contacted us and no one has talked to us. We don't want him to throw money at issues. We want him to do a concerted campaign to end femicide.
Despite being dispersed today, the protesters say that they will return to the streets if their demands are not met. They want to see stringent changes in the current laws dealing with sexual and domestic violence. They also want to see femicide added to the penal code.
Rose Wangoi has more details.
Peaceful protesters in Nairobi gathered for the End Femicide March, marking the conclusion of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. The demonstration brought together women, human rights activists and allies to raise awareness about the recent surge in femicide cases across the country. The protesters had gathered at Jivanji by 9 a.m. and moved through the city to judiciary headquarters, where they were to make their case against rising cases of GBV. However, despite the peaceful nature of the protest, police responded with tear gas and violent dispersal tactics. And they scampered for safety. Heavily equipped officers, both uniformed and plainclothed, also made multiple arrests in the CBD.
We want justice, freedom and equality. Africa must be free.
Hatusemi wanaume hawauliwi, hatusemi watoto hawakufi, but kwa hizo places za Kware, all the bodies found were women's, and that's why we are here today, because we don't want women to be killed. It doesn't make sense. That's why we are shouting, stop femicide. Mtutupia tear gas, muache, stop killing women. That's our whole agenda for today.
Mr. President, this is a call to you to be very clear with what you want. You're either fighting against femicide and protecting the women of this country, ama you're sending your cops to throw to us tear gas and arrest us when we come to the streets. This is a new movement. We are young people and we know what we want, and we will go and get it. Stop killing women.
Sincerely.
Government officials, including President William Ruto, say they're doing their best to keep women safe.
I have instructed the criminal justice actors to execute their mandate without delay, holding perpetrators of femicide fully accountable.
Those who came to the streets to demonstrate say they've heard words like this before.
Ruto cannot come and say there is femicide. He has an extra role. He should tell us how many people have been arrested this year because of femicide. How many? They cannot come and complain like us. So why are they the government?
Women in Kenya are planning to hold another march in December. They say they want action and they will not be silenced until the government does better. They also want justice for women who've been murdered and for those who've been abused and are still living in fear.
Ivy Wangeshi, Agnes Tirop, Rita Waini. These are just some of the women who have been killed in the recent past. On 30th October, the startling statement by security agencies that 97 women have so far lost their lives to femicide in the past 3 months alone deepened the roots of just how the killings have wreaked havoc in the society. In an effort to curb the killings, the government has outlined a new framework, which is why the government spokesperson's remarks have come as a surprise.
Leo utapata, kesho utakosa. Lakini watoto wa kike vile vile pia msio wepesi wa kufanya shortcuts. Sio vyote ving'avyo ni dhahabu. Jamaa sikupe 100,000, sikupe 50,000, mara moja umetoka mbio. Maana amekwambia tukutane mahali. Wengine ni mitego. Unaweza kwenda kwa shilingi 50,000 ama 100,000 ama simu wewe wanaita simu gani ambayo inapeleka wasichana mbio sana siku hizi? iPhone. Hiyo iPhone unaambiwa unaifuata kwa pupa, hutaweza kuitumia. Maana either utakuwa umefariki ama umekuwa kiwete.
As if her initial statement was not enough, the deputy government spokesperson felt the need to add more to her sentiment.
jikinge, mtoto wa kike jikinge, tosheka, nenda shule, soma, elimika. Thamani yako kwa na masomo, kwa na hela yako unaheshimika zaidi. Ukiwa mtu wa rahisi, jamaa mwingine kule alikuliwa afya yake na nani, yuko na hasira chungu nzima. Sasa wewe siku ndio unkwenda, ndio siku amepanga kufanya nini? Kutoa hasira zake.
The victim-blaming approach towards femicide has been a thorn in the flesh against it, according to psychologist Dr. Gladys Mwiti.
We become a simplistic nation that takes the easiest solutions and the ways out, explaining critical matters in our nation with words that are carelessly drawn from our own desire for comfort.
The statement by the government deputy spokesperson came after a multi-sectoral meeting to outline a framework to strengthen and identify the root causes of femicide and GBV. When asked about the fact that the Kware murder's prime suspect is still on the run,
that we are continuing to pursue him, and in the fullness of time we will make sure that he is arrested and face the full force of the law.
Ungeweza kujua ni visa 97. Haungeweza kujua, maana tumefanya uchunguzi na tukapata data ya kwamba ni visa 97. Uchunguzi upo, baadhi wametiwa ndani, baadhi uchunguzi unaendelea.
This is a societal problem. It is not a problem for any single entity. It is a societal problem. It's not a problem for the police. So we are calling upon you. Please dedicate some time to this campaign against gender-based violence. Dedicate some space, even in your newspapers, against this gender-based violence. And when you do your reporting, we are requesting that you do your reporting in a certain way that will not really traumatize people.
It is not enough to do conferences. It is not enough to give statements. What we want now is action taken. We want to see perpetrators brought into books, and we want to see a whole approach to this thing, because it's not about women, it's not about girls, it's not about leaders. It's a societal problem that we all need to come together and address it.
As we have agreed that this is purely murder, this is criminal cases that are not going to be acceptable in our society, and crime is a crime. From where we sit as the National Police Service, the many cases that we've been reported, there are over 90 cases that have been reported, are actively under investigation. And you've seen it, even 2 days ago, we arrested the suspects that we believe were associated with Isli.
Tonight, at the custody of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations is Hashim Dagane Mohammed, a man believed to be behind the brutal murder of family members, a mother, daughter, and 12-year-old niece. Arrested on Sunday, the suspect is said to have been hiding in Isili all along, according to an officer familiar with the investigations into the killing of Nusaiba Abdi, Amina Abdirashid, and Dahabo Daoud. With the detectives burning the midnight oil to unravel the puzzle behind the brutal murders, President William Ruto has affirmed that his administration will deploy all necessary resources in curbing gender-based violence.
How can it be that our girls, the women of Kenya, that expect us to love them, that now they are dying in the hands of men?
Tuache kusema ati suluhisho ni kuambia wasichana wakutane na mtu wa aina hii ama hii. Do not blame the victim. There is no justification of killing a female or anybody in our country.
However, the head of state had a clarion call to the society.
As parents, as Kenyans, we must also deal with the moral issue. Let us not just finger point as to who should do what. We should also begin by saying, what will I do as a citizen?
Elsewhere, in Mathare, the Coalition for Grassroots Human Rights Defenders Kenya held a peaceful protest calling on the national government to declare femicide a national disaster.
You can't be telling us that as a government we need to be careful and not talk to strangers. Who are strangers? Yes. Most of these cases of femicide, it's being perpetrated by intimate partner violence.
We raise concern that security apparatus are not taking this matter with the seriousness it deserves. This is evident by the casual manner in which femicide is being addressed and the open contradictions between two arms of security mandated to handle the matters.
Recently, in a statement, Deputy Inspector General of Police Eliud Lagat acknowledged a disturbing increase in murder and manslaughter cases over the past 2 years. Figures released by the National Police Service indicate that at least 97 femicide cases were reported in the last 3 months.
Allow me to begin by sending our heartfelt condolences to the families and loved ones of those who have lost their young girls, their women, and the many who we are yet to know about because the cases are unreported. As you have rightly mentioned, we have very worrying statistics coming out of cases that have been reported. On average, as FIDA Kenya, when we look at the statistics we have been collecting since 2020, 2021, 2022, we are looking at an average of 50 cases that are reported in a year of specific femicide. You break it down to the weekly statistics, it means at least every week we are having 1 or 2 cases of reported publicly known cases of femicide. We cannot continue like this. It's not even so much a conversation about femicide, it's about safety. It's about the security of more than half of this nation, which should worry everyone, including those in the highest esteemed offices. Break it down to the traditions and the cultural stereotypes, where often if a wife reported that her husband has violated her, the first question would be, what did you do? You must have upset him. So that has now graduated to social spaces. We are having a lot of our young people interacting on social media. And so that's where the problem starts. And it is indeed very worrying, because looking at the cases that have happened in the most recent past, they're really gruesome. Yeah. No one deserves to die in that manner.
No one deserves to die in that manner. And I want to draw your attention and to the victim blaming, and many comments have been shared online, blaming victims for their deaths. For some, it is, why were you in this particular situation? Others labeling women as, you know, soliciting for favors from men and therefore calling this upon themselves. There's also the blanket condemnation of men. So it goes either way.
Yes.
So the debate online is that, what did you do to deserve this? Now, in terms of victim blaming, when you look into that and the ripple effect of that for the victims, what then happens? You're saying most of these victims are attacked by persons that are known to them, that are close to them. So when this victim shaming happens, what then does that, what message does that send out to potential victims or to victims who find themselves in such situations?
One of the things we see, as you rightly said, is that the victim shaming brings a stigma. Stigma of reporting, stigma of getting help, stigma of response, because we operate within a community. So when we have women, being blamed, it means we are already clouding any intervention that should be there to assist them. We start questioning, as you said, what were they doing? And again, going back to the issue, Lillian, it has nothing to do with who the victim was.
Now, consider how societies feel about men suffering abuse at the hands of women and how societies go about it.
Men out there, brace yourselves, because we're about to go there, because this woman, we're about to go there because this woman allegedly did. According to the Orange County DA's office, Catherine Q. Becker is accused of cutting off her husband's penis with a knife, taking his penis and throwing it into the garbage disposal. She's been charged with felony torture and aggravated mayhem. Police say Becker attacked him because he filed for divorce. She's being held. She goes, that'll teach him. She is being held in a California jail while her husband remains in the hospital.
I bet you that those prison guards are wearing one of those, what are those things that footballers wear? Those metal cups.
Oh, yeah, that the athletes wear?
Yes, yes.
Jockstraps? Cups.
Yes. I mean, I don't know the circumstances. I don't know why he filed for divorce. I don't know what was going on between them. However, I do think it's quite fabulous. I mean, can you just imagine that thing whizzing around the disposal? It's like hysterical. But, however, I think I would have just, depending on why she cut it off. I mean, it does depend on the reasons why.
Does it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, standards. Practice it.
What would be an acceptable reason?
I'll think of one. But I would have just thrown it in the dog's bowl.
Why does the dog have to suffer?
chewing on an old bone.
Well, remember the Lorena Bobbitt, the Bobbitt case where
Love her.
she kind of did that
Love
first?
her. I like candles by her picture.
Yeah. You love Bobbitt? Well, at least she didn't put it in the garbage disposal. So they went and they found it in a field somewhere, and they were able to reattach it. But once you put it in the garbage disposal, I guess there's no reattaching that bad.
And also, it's like, was she like, oh, I cut it up, but that's not enough. I'm going to throw it in the garbage disposal.
And then turn it
she
on.
She wasn't satisfied by just cutting it off.
I don't know that there's anything that my husband could do to make me that mad, though.
Oh, I can think of some.
Really? All right, like what?
No, it's actually not funny. I just said that to be funny. But there are things that I don't want to say because we're laughing about it and it's fun, that I can think of one thing that a man can do that I would consider chopping up his stuff.
Oh my
And what is it?
Cheating.
No, it's not cheating.
No, like I think I got it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like a bad crime kind of thing. But I was also thinking, like, I wonder what their fights were like before this. Like,
That's a good point.
what their fights are like. If you don't take out the trash, I'm going to cut your penis off.
Right, did he see it coming? Were there signs? But
Totally.
allegedly, there's so much premeditation. There's poisoning the food or drugging him and tying him up. And then when the police got there, she was like, he deserved it. He's in there. That's what she said.
Do you want the police?
She did.
Oh, that was nice.
There's something I want to point out, though, not to be like a total buzzkill, but it is a little bit like sexist. Like if somebody cut a woman's breast off, no one would be sitting laughing. Like it's not that right to sit around laughing about it if we think about it.
It's different, though.
It is different.
One's floppy and one just sticks up like that. It's easy to do that.
Some are floppy. Both can be floppy. Let's just put that out there.
This guy, for him to have gotten so plastered to the point of someone chopping off some of your limbs.
No, it's not really about being plastered. In fact, what we were discussing with Julie was that any man who is close enough to you, you can cut off many of his things. I think that most of the women are just nice and they're not planning to cut off any of your wondering
why there's so many men walking around with their stuff because clearly.
No, but how does that happen? Because in a normal situation, in a normal situation, if that happened, then that woman definitely would be a dead woman walking. Now, for that to happen, that your stuff is cut and then what happens? Are you just sitting there? Oh, nasikia uchungu.
There's a bigger problem in central Kenya as a whole, actually, and I think those in the know that they need to do something about it. Alcoholism has just reduced people who would otherwise really be helpful in this society. Quite unhelpfulness. And women do not leave their homes to come and sit with you and look at you. They can do that back at home. So when you are not doing what you brought them from home to come and do, then it becomes, it's not interesting for them. So these people are angry, and they're taking out the anger on the people who married them or supposedly are supposed to take care of them. So it's really sad. I don't think that it's nice to walk without your engine, generator, all those things that they're calling them. I've seen really interesting memes. But remember, women can dismember you.
Don't cut people's stuff off. Like if I chopped off your...
No, if you did it, it would be different. Of course, if a man
But you
does
see,
it,
what
it's a
would you
whole
chop
different
from
story.
us? You see, most of the things that we have are not exterior. What will we be chopping?
You know, for women, I think it's like it's been long. All the mistreatment or the harassment or the guy is not providing has been going on
what
for
you're
a long
talking
time.
about. It's been long.
She probably get off with it because the guy probably did something so horrible and has been doing it for so long.
Let's understand where this woman is coming from. Allegedly, like I told you, this guy had not come home for 2 days. He had been in a drinking spree. Then he comes home finally, overly drunk. But he had a condom. Maybe waited for him to black out and then just decided if this is the problem, like the way the Bible says, if your right hand is the one that is causing you to sin,
there's no good enough reason for somebody to do such permanent
absolutely damage.
No, but is there a good enough reason for a man to treat a woman in a certain way? But you've got children, you've been married to this guy, your whole life is invested in that particular situation.
So now you maim me.
Because your life is invested
So
in me.
then he should have thought about that before he did what he was doing.
When women kill men, it's often through poison or a hitman, so they get away easily because for the most part, around 2/3 of the time, they do it for the money, so they have enough money to beat the case.
This morning, an alleged poisoning caught on camera. Tucson police investigating these videos obtained by ABC News that Airman Robbie Johnson claims shows his wife, Melody, trying to poison him by pouring bleach into his coffee maker in the midst of a contentious divorce. In a probable cause complaint, Johnson alleging the poisoning attempts began in March while the couple lived in Germany and continued when they moved back to Arizona. After noticing his coffee was tasting bad, he bought Pool chemical testing strips, which showed high levels of chlorine in his coffee pot. The strips seen in this video police are investigating, obtained by our affiliate KGUN.
I want to test this to show that it's definitely tainted. It stinks. Same strip. Big change.
Johnson setting up multiple cameras in his house capturing the footage of his wife, who's now behind bars charged with multiple felonies, including attempt to commit first-degree murder. According to the complaint, police found liquid that smelled like bleach inside the coffee maker and a container under her bathroom sink that smelled like bleach and had a very small amount of liquid inside of it. Her husband alleging she was trying to kill him to collect death benefits. Melody has not entered a plea, her attorney declining to comment.
The state is going to have to prove that her intention was to kill him, that this wasn't some bizarre effort to clean the coffee machine, that this wasn't some mistake, that she was out to get him. And I would think that the additional investigation that they've done will support that argument.
An Arizona woman who admitted to poisoning her husband's coffee with bleach gets a slap on the wrist and avoids jail time. 40-year-old Melody Johnson was initially charged with attempted first-degree murder, but last month pleaded guilty to 2 counts of poisoning food or drink. Under her agreement, Johnson pleaded to the lesser crime and the attempted murder charge was dismissed in return. The case unfolded last year when Tucson police said Johnson had been poisoning her husband's coffee since he was stationed at an Air Force base in Germany in March of 2023. The couple was in the process of getting a divorce, and the victim believed he was being poisoned so Johnson could collect his death benefits. Johnson's husband caught on to the scheme after 2 or 3 weeks of his coffee tasting bad. So he took the investigation into his own hands. The airman reportedly purchased Pool chemical testing strips, and the coffee pot water turned up positive for high levels of chlorine, even though the faucet water was normal. Johnson's husband would later tell investigators she knew that he would prep his coffee at night, so in the morning he just needed to turn on the machine to make his daily brew. According to reports, Johnson's husband even went so far as pretending to drink the cup of joe and waited until they were no longer stationed in Germany to report the incidents to authorities. Johnson herself was later caught red-handed by her husband, as hidden camera footage shows her trying to poison her husband by pouring bleach into his coffee maker. The couple then relocated to an Air Force base in Tucson, where Johnson's husband brought the video evidence to authorities, and she was later arrested. Fast forward to this year, Johnson would strike a plea deal with prosecutors. Initially, she faced a maximum of 2 years in prison for each count. However, the judge seemingly gave her a slap on the wrist, sentencing her to probation. According to reports at sentencing, Johnson's attorney told the courts her client suffered from anxiety and depression, even alluding to a toxic marriage and claiming her husband was abusive toward her.
A Missouri wife is in jail for allegedly poisoning her husband's Mountain Dew drink. Michelle Peters denies mixing Roundup into her husband's cup, but allegedly told police she was angry her husband was not appreciative of the 50th birthday party she threw him. The victim went to police after he noticed his Mountain Dew did not taste right and he became sick.
But a Missouri woman is accused of putting the weed killer Roundup in her husband's Mountain Dew. And she was reportedly doing it over a period of weeks before allegedly switching it to insecticide earlier this month. We're talking about 47-year-old Michelle Peters of Lebanon, Missouri. She was arrested after an interview at the Laclede County Sheriff's Office. She's locked up with no bond, and she is charged with first-degree domestic assault and armed criminal action. Her husband, fortunately, survived this alleged poisoning or these poisoning attempts. And he is the one who put 2 and 2 together, basically because he realized his drink wasn't
tasting right and he started to not feel well. So he eventually reported his suspicions to the county sheriff, but it wasn't just suspicions that he had. No. He also presented them with surveillance footage. He has a refrigerator in the garage where he stores his 2 liters of Mountain Dew. Around the 1st of May, he noticed that his Mountain Dew had an odd taste and got sick shortly after. He reviewed video footage which showed Michelle taking the 2 liters of Mountain Dew out of the garage refrigerator and grabbing Roundup weed killer. Shortly after grabbing the Roundup and Mountain Dew, Michelle placed the Mountain Dew back in the refrigerator. He added that he is the only one in the household who drinks Mountain Dew. He showed Sheriff Millsap and me several videos on his tablet which showed the interior of his and Michelle's garage. In the video, I observed Michelle multiple times taking the Mountain Dew in and out of the refrigerator and handling the Roundup. In the videos, Michelle would conceal herself out of camera view before placing the Mountain Dew back in the refrigerator. Remember, this is the account now of the law enforcement officer. He said that he brought multiple 2 liters of Mountain Dew that he believed were tainted with Roundup. We packaged the bottles into evidence bags.
This morning, new allegations in the case of Corey Richins, the Utah mother accused of killing her husband, Eric, by poisoning him with fentanyl, then writing a children's book on dealing with grief. Investigators now claim Richins may have had help from her mother, Lisa Darden. Darden spoke about the case late last year and claimed Eric may have accidentally overdosed on his own.
I believe Eric may have gotten pain pills and didn't realize that they had fentanyl in them. If you knew Corey, she would never, ever do this, not only to Eric, but to those boys.
Newly unsealed documents reveal Lisa Darden was living with a woman back in 2006 who also died suddenly from an overdose. Investigators now say, based on Lisa Darden's proximity to her partner's suspicious overdose death, it is possible she was involved in planning and orchestrating Eric's death. Corey Richins' attorney responded, saying the fact that Ms. Darden's significant other was one of the millions that suffered from and ultimately succumbed to opioid addiction is hardly suspicious. It is tragic and, unfortunately, quite common. But the similarities may go beyond overdoses. Investigators say Darden benefited from her partner's life insurance policy, just like Richins allegedly tried to do when investigators say she changed Eric's life insurance policy months before his death. Richins has pleaded not guilty to all charges, her attorney also defending Richins' mother, saying the fact that Ms. Darden was the beneficiary of her romantic partner's life insurance policy is also not unique. It only demonstrates that her circumstances are no different than most families in America.
This morning, new court documents show 33-year-old Corey Richins took out nearly $2 million in life insurance policies without her husband knowing about it, $250,000 in home equity, and withdrew $100,000 from his bank accounts before his death.
I think the more we know about Corey, the more we know that this was money-driven.
The Utah mom of 3 wrote a children's book about grief after her husband Eric died. Now prosecutors say that Richins is actually responsible for his death, accusing her of poisoning him with fentanyl. Just a few weeks before he died, court documents say Eric confided in a friend that he thought his wife was attempting to kill him when he got sick after a Valentine's Day meal. Eric was found dead in their home in March of 2022 after allegedly drinking a Moscow Mule made by Corey.
She seemed to have orchestrated meticulously the death of her husband. I don't think anybody should be surprised if the state goes after the death penalty.
When asked about the court documents, Richins' lawyers told ABC News the state amended the charging information and has not turned over discovery yet that supports it. Therefore, we couldn't be prepared to argue about the sufficiency of the evidence. As for Corey, she spoke in an interview about her book just 1 month before her arrest in April on why she wrote it.
I just wanted some story to read to my kids. I couldn't find anything that really, suited them or helped them find comfort and peace.
Now, as for that book, it has been taken off Amazon, and Richins is back in court in the next month, and all eyes will be on what her lawyers say at that time.
The Orange County dermatologist and wife accused of poisoning her husband was using Drano in her kitchen, according to her lawyer, but not for anything criminal.
The idea that my client, who's a 45-year-old,
well-respected dermatologist in Orange County would destroy her life, destroy her children's life, and to try to kill her husband is just completely absurd and untrue, and for that matter, defamatory.
Emily Yu was arrested last week after her husband, Jack Chen, another local doctor, brought these images to Irvine police. His attorney says Chen set up cameras in the kitchen in July and allegedly documented his wife pouring Drano into his lemonade on 3 separate occasions. Yu's lawyer, David Wool, told me that plumbing issues caused his client to use Drano, and she poured the chemical into a cup so it wouldn't splash. These are screenshots contained in court papers. My request for the videos was denied.
Any time that she poured Drano into a cup, it was completely empty. It was for facilitating use in the sink or any other particular part of her house that was clogged as far as the drainage goes, but she never poured any Drano or any chemical into any drink that the father or her husband used or was drinking ever. That's just completely untrue.
But Emily Yu's husband told police he'd been noticing a chemical taste in his lemonade, and he's been sick for months, according to his lawyer. Chen, who is a radiologist, was diagnosed with stomach ulcers, gastritis, and inflammation of the esophagus. Through her lawyer, Emily Yu says she doesn't know how her husband ingested Drano or if he actually did.
But we do know that he was desperate for a divorce filing. He was desperate to have reasons to gain custody of his children, and we believe completely that these claims that he has made are all part and parcel of that effort.
This morning, a California dermatologist is officially charged with trying to poison her husband with liquid drain cleaner. But her lawyer says the woman's husband set her up.
Dr. Chen basically set her up and put spy cameras or hidden cameras in the kitchen to catch her doing that. Then he claimed he was poisoned.
45-year-old Emily Yu is charged with 3 felony counts of poisoning and 1 count of domestic battery. The Orange County District Attorney claiming these images show the mother of 2 pouring a Drano-like substance into her husband, Dr. Jack Chen's tea, intending to cause him pain and suffering. Yu's attorney pushing back, saying his client was trying to kill ants in the kitchen.
The indictment says she was not caught once, but 3 times on camera trying to poison her husband. How do you defend that?
She does pour the Drano in the cup 3 times to kill the ants. That's not disputed. She absolutely poured the Drano in the cup.
I have never heard of a way to prevent ants from putting Drano into somebody else's drink.
Last April, Chen says he began noticing a strange taste to the tea, so he set up a hidden camera. Authorities say these images capture Yu pouring this substance into the tea on July 11th, July 18th, and July 25th. The doctor saying in divorce filings he was diagnosed with 2 stomach ulcers, gastritis, and esophagitis.
My personal theory is I don't think she wanted to kill him. I think she wanted him to suffer.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell me what, what's up?
Well, not entirely sure. I've been I don't know, off the fence. I know I want it done. I'm just trying to figure out when I want it done.
It is her own husband she is talking about killing.
But you want it to look like a break-in, somebody breaking in?
Well, we were talking about that too, and Carlos was like, oh, well, since I know him, I might be able to get him outside. I have a girlfriend who wants to move in with me, and I don't want her to be scared to move in with me. And if she thinks that we got broken into and then Jake got,
Yeah, that's probably she wouldn't want to move in.
Yeah, so I'm kind of afraid of that because I want her to move in with me because I don't want to live there by myself afterwards.
And the guy she's talking to, that right hand there, that's whom she wants to hire to kill her husband. She talked to him twice, and he was full of questions.
That's him.
Does he look just like that then?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much?
Yep.
Okay.
Except now he's got a tattoo on his arm.
You said, something about a gunshot, so is that how you want me to do it? You want me to shoot him?
Unless you can do it painlessly, breaking his neck, that would...
Well, I would prefer to use either a knife or a gun. It's quick and easy.
Do it by instead it's painless, less painless.
Right. Where do you want me to shoot him? Do you want an open casket, a closed casket? What do you want?
I don't want an open casket.
And the stuff she's worried about, like the mess it might make.
I can do it any way you want me to, but I just want to know how you want it done.
Really, whatever's easiest. If you can get him outside, that would be great.
Okay.
But, if you absolutely can't, I'll understand,
So you want me to I guess I'm not understanding you. So you don't want it done in the house then?
Because it would be messy in the house.
She didn't really need to worry because her husband is still alive. And Julia Murfeld, who wanted her husband dead, faces sentencing for her crime on July 30th. One mistake she made, talking to that guy in the car. He was an undercover police officer with the Muskegon County, Michigan Sheriff's Department. Another mistake, thinking she would get away with this. Amazingly, the number of people who try to pay someone to kill off a relative is more than you can count on one hand. Nightline has covered several such cases in recent years, and in all of those, the plotter was caught in time. As former FBI agent and ABC consultant Brad Garrett told us, these people keep making the same mistakes.
What they do is they step to a friend or an associate or someone that they knew in their past, and what happens in a vast majority of the time, the person they step to goes to law enforcement.
Take, for example, the case of Dalia DiPoletto, who, like Julia Murfeld, was taped making a deal for her husband's murder with an apparent assassin who was actually a cop.
I'm positive, like 5,000% Charlotte.
She went so far as to put on a big grief performance when they told her, falsely of course, that the deed had been done.
Okay, I'm sorry to tell you, man, he's been killed. He's been killed, man. I'm sorry.
In DiPoletto's case, it was the typical miscalculation. She turned for help to someone who then went to the police. She is currently under house arrest on $500,000 bond as her lawyers appeal her conviction.
We're going to show them the film where you say you're 5,000% sure you want him dead.
It's the cold-bloodedness that comes across in these stories.
It surprised me with how you do it.
How, in Julia Murfeld's case, she nonchalantly discussed the details of offing someone who had been part of her life, whom she presumably loved once.
I was looking at my calendar and I was thinking either the 18th of April or the 25th.
You wonder, how can it get from loving and marrying to wanting to kill and planning to kill?
She has turned this over again and again in her mind so many times. She doesn't even see her husband as a real person anymore. At this point, he's just a mark.
But here is another twist on it. The case of Houston lawyer Jeffrey Stern, arrested for plotting the murder of his wife Yvonne. His mistress, Michelle Gazer, confessed to being in on it and is already serving time. But Yvonne, the intended victim, says she still loves her man and is blaming the whole mess on the mistress.
I forgive him for his indiscretions.
The charges against Stern were dropped, and the marriage lives on. And how did that happen?
The spouses have something called learned helplessness. The victimized spouses sometimes don't even want to break away. They feel guilty, brainwashed, they imagine it's their own fault, and sometimes they'll even go to the murderous spouse's defense to try to get leniency in sentencing.
Stern's former mistress, meanwhile, was plotting to have him murdered, according to Stern's attorney.
Michelle Gazer, from her jail cell, has plotted yet another murder. She has solicited an inmate to murder Jeffrey Stern for $20,000.
So these things do tend to get messy, which is just what Murfeld didn't want when she got in that car.
You don't want it done in the house then?
Because it would be messy in the house.
And why not just divorce her husband? Well, there was insurance money to be had if he were dead, and then there were his feelings to consider.
When I first decided to do this, it's not that we weren't getting along, but I mean, it was easier than, as terrible as it sounds, it was easier than divorcing him. You know, I didn't have to worry about the judgment of my family. I didn't have to worry about breaking his heart. Stuff like this is like kind of like a clean getaway.
Breaking his heart? Yeah, sounds like that would have killed him.
This demon wanted to take innocent children's mommy away from them.
First up, we're in Circleville, Ohio for the sentencing of 33-year-old Tara Lambert. A year earlier, Lambert was recorded stepping into this parked car to meet with a hitman and arrange the murder of her husband's ex-girlfriend, Kelly Cook, whom he shares 2 children with.
What's going on with you? I hear you got a problem.
I have had a problem for 7 years.
Really? 7? Damn.
Yeah.
Those problems reportedly stemmed from ongoing visitation issues between Lambert's husband and his ex regarding their daughters.
I need her away, gone.
Okay.
Uncommunicative.
Damn.
Unfortunately for Lambert, the person in the driver's seat is not actually a hitman. He's an undercover officer.
I mean, what do you want done with her?
Oh my God. Just put her in a chopper, like one of those lumberjack chopper things.
I don't carry a lumberjack chopper.
No, I'm just kidding. Like, that's how much I hate her, though. I don't know. Whatever you...
You want me to just walk up and cap her?
I don't know. What do you think?
So, I'll just walk straight up, shoot her in the grill.
On top of casually calling for the killing of her husband's ex, Lambert also gives the go-ahead to kill the intended mark's new husband, Sean Cook, should he happen to get in the way.
So if he's there, you want him to go too?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't mind.
Just hours later, Lambert was arrested and brought in for questioning.
Am I really, like, arrested?
Yes, you're under arrest.
Oh my God.
Did you ever make the comment that you would like to have her killed?
To have Kelly killed? My stepdaughter's mother?
Yes.
No.
The sting operation was set up by a friend of Lambert's after Lambert asked her to find someone to kill Cook. By all accounts, Lambert's husband had nothing to do with the proposed hits. With the clear video evidence against her, Lambert was later found guilty of 1 count of conspiracy to commit aggravated murder. And now at sentencing, Sean Cook, who also found himself on Lambert's potential hit list, shares his victim impact statement with the court.
To relay the extremely deep and long-lasting effects this has had on our family is almost impossible. So we hope the court realizes this, that there isn't only one victim.
Most affected, Cook says, are Lambert's own stepdaughters.
The 2 oldest children had a relationship with this defendant, and the knowledge that she wanted to take their mother's life, as well as their stepfather's, has done irreparable damage. Tara is nothing but a bully, and it's time to take a stand against people like this. Please do not show her compassion or consideration, as she has none for others.
Now, facing the possibility of up to 22 years in prison, before learning her sentence, Lambert addresses her intended victims.
Kelly, Sean, and your kids, I am truly sorry for the harm that my actions have caused. I never intended for the situation to get so out of control, but it did, and I do accept full responsibility for it. While the jury was told not to consider mercy, I hope that this court can consider it.
Mercy, however, does not seem to be what the judge has in mind.
You're out of control. This is probably the first time in your life, now that you're 33 years of age, you've come in front of somebody who's taking control or will take control of your life and say, no, you're not going to do that. You stand committed to Marysville Reformatory for Women for a period of 7 years.
A year later, Tara Lambert's conviction was overturned on a technicality that the prosecution failed to prove a critical element of the conspiracy charge. In exchange for pleading guilty prior to a second trial, Lambert was given the reduced sentence of 5 years with credit for 1 year time served.
An application by the prosecution to have rally driver Maxine Wahome detained for 14 days pending investigations into allegations of causing grievous body harm to her boyfriend Asad Khan was shot down by Kibra Magistrate Bernard Ochoy.
I will direct, therefore, that the respondent be released from custody on cash bail of 100,000 shillings, and the respondent will be reporting to the investigating officer of this case at Kilimani Police Station once a week, every Monday, until the conclusion of investigations.
Ochoy added that the application by the state to detain her for 2 weeks lacked compelling reasons to keep the suspect in police custody. 26-year-old Maxine Wahome is suspected to have caused grievous body harm to her boyfriend 50-year-old Asad Khan following what has been reported as an altercation between the two. The investigating officer told the court that she was arrested at their apartment after the boyfriend's brother made a report of an assault to the police. The court heard that during the arrest, the police found a lot of blood in the house and broken glasses signifying a struggle.
She can't enter her own apartment.
However, through her lawyers, Wahome said she is a victim and claimed that the man hurt himself when he was attacking her. Her lawyer told the court that until investigations are over, no one really knows who the victim is in this case, since the intended complainant is still unconscious and cannot record a statement. Maxine made history in June this year when she became the first female to win the World Rally Championship 3 at the age of 26 during the Safari Rally in Naivasha.
Safari Rally driver Maxine Wahome may face murder charges over the death of rally driver Saad Khan. Maxine, who was presented in court today, had been charged with causing a grievous harm to late Khan in a scuffle last month. However, following the death of Khan, the investigating officer requested for more time to conduct investigations, stating that the circumstances of the case had changed from that of causing grievous harm to murder. Now, the court granted the investigating officer 14 days to conclude investigations. Maxine was arrested on December 12th and detained at Kilimani Police Station after a report of the assault was reported by Adil Khan, Assad's younger brother.
The investigating officer is given more time as requested to conclude investigations, considering that the victim herein passed on in the course of the investigations, and that he is no longer investigating a case of murder, investigating a case of grievous harm, but a case of murder. It appears that they will still require her to record further statements in view of the new investigations they are conducting.
At the same time, Safari Rally driver Maxine Wahome has pleaded not guilty to charges of murdering her boyfriend Assad Khan on the 12th of December 2022. Maxine, who appeared before Justice Lillian Mutende virtually, sought to be released on bail, saying she will abide by the conditions of the court. Now, through her lawyer, Philip Morgo, Maxine says the late Khan injured himself while breaking the door to the balcony where she had taken refuge after he attacked her. She will be detained at the Langata Women's Prison ahead of the hearing of her bail application on the 21st of March.
The murder trial against junior rally driver Maxine Wahome kicked off on Tuesday, with a neighbor taking to the stand as a first witness. Chemutai Kipkorir told the court today that Maxine and the deceased, who is her late lover, used to frequently engage in physical fights. She testified that on December 12, 2022, she was in her house when she heard commotion from Assad's house, though she did not get out of her house to try and intervene or separate the two. Mutai told the court that she heard a woman crying amid the commotion before she went on to call 911 and the Kilelesho Association chairman. Maxine is charged with the murder of Assad, who died on December 19, 2022. This was after he sustained serious injuries at his home on December 12th.
That's why.
But by that time, when I came back, somebody had gotten a silver blanket and they covered him up and they loaded him into the vehicle.
So you didn't manage to lend them your blankets?
No, I didn't. They didn't need it at that point.
Yes.
And then they drove off, and then that's actually now when I went and opened my door, and there was a lot of blood right on my doorstep. And there was a noise coming from upstairs. It sounded more like a commotion and scuffles, and there was what sounded like an argument.
Since you said there are two other houses, all floors up, so which particular house?
This was D3, directly above my apartment.
And you said the inhabitant or occupant of that house was?
Assad. I would occasionally see a lady coming in, and this was for a period of about 2 years, so that's the most familiar person I remember who was in D3. It sounded like commotion and scuffling, and there was just heavy pounding on the floor and a man yelling and what sounded like a lady crying.
So So any other boys?
No, just those two, to my knowledge.
Yes. Any other thing that you can recall? Hearing? Any other thing?
Yes. One thing, when he was yelling, he said, sorry, can I curse in court?
Sorry?
Can I say exactly what he said?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I heard him saying, get the fuck out of my house. And he kept repeating, get the fuck out of my house, and more scuffling and the woman crying.
So how many times did you hear the words?
I heard it twice when I was in this, at this time, at 8 o'clock.
And any other sound coming from the other person that you said was in the house?
Just crying.
No sound? Just
Crying,
no
somebody
words.
crying. There was mumbling words, but I couldn't make out what they were. Yeah.
So what did you do upon hearing such?
I went to my living room and used the house intercom to call the guard downstairs. His name is Hassan. I called because I'd mentioned, I knew that if I called him, he would go and address it. So I called and said, they're fighting again. Could you go make them, or could you do something?
So when you say they're fighting again, who did you mention? Because you're saying they're fighting again. Did you mention the names of the people who are fighting?
I did not mention the names of the people fighting.
Yes. So did Hassan know the people that you are referring to?
Yes, he did.
Have you considered how societies feel about men suffering abuse at the hands of women? Now consider how societies feel about women killing children. Let's start with women getting rid of the lumps of cells in their bodies, and they call it healthcare, something so divisive all over the world.
Outpouring of raw emotion across the USA. Arrests in South Carolina. In Phoenix, protesters were tear-gassed as they converged on the state capitol. And that's actress Jodie Sweetin, best known as a child star from Full House, tumbling to the ground after being shoved by a riot cop in LA.
This song goes out to the justices.
Teen pop sensation Olivia Rodrigo made her feelings clear at a music festival in Britain. Others, like Cheryl Burke from Dancing with the Stars, are revealing deeply personal stories they never told before.
I had an abortion when I was 18 years old, and if it wasn't for places like Planned Parenthood, I would be a mother, and I wouldn't have been a great mother.
At a rally in New York, Congresswoman AOC said she had a pregnancy scare after she was a victim of rape when she was in her 20s.
All I could think was, thank God I have at least a choice.
Some TV commenters went ballistic.
The message it sends is pretty clear. We don't care if pregnancy kills you. We don't care if you don't want to be pregnant. We don't care about you at all.
Well, if you're keeping score at home, it's guns one, women nothing.
There is concern today about a possible surge in violence. Rudy Giuliani was slapped in the back at a supermarket on Staten Island, New York, by an employee allegedly upset about the Roe v. Wade decision.
He said that I was a woman killer. You kill women, your party kills women.
It doesn't look very hard, but Giuliani is 78 and says he really felt it.
It didn't knock me down, but it hurt tremendously.
The guy was arrested and charged with assault.
I'm here just to support everybody who's out and everybody who might be having a hard time now. I know that I'm privileged to have the resources to be able to solve problems that might arise from an unwanted pregnancy.
I was disgusted because abortion's healthcare. I mean, you can die giving birth. We don't even have universal healthcare.
The bright spot is just that we're not going to obey. We're not going to obey this court or these laws.
America's going back to the Middle Ages in so many ways. You have a country like America, the United States of America, quoting 13th century law.
You don't care if people die.
If you want to say something to the Supreme Court, you basically have to come to their front door.
You don't care if people die. Pro-life is a lie. You don't care if people die.
It's not like this is a surprise, but it still really hurts to see it like laid out in black and white that this is going to happen.
I thought we had settled this. I thought this matter had been settled, and you know, that we could continue to enjoy reproductive freedom, that we wouldn't have to be doing this again.
My name is Kimberly Mohabir, and I am an abortion provider. I was actually out here last night with my friend. As soon as we heard, we just felt like we had to get out here because we wanted women all across the country and people that can be pregnant to know that we support them and that they might be in a state that one of these bans might be able to go through, but there are people in other places that support you and will try as hard as we can to protect your rights and get you the health care that you deserve. I work in Virginia right now. We've already seen an uptick in people that have to get flights that literally fly in the morning of, get their procedure, fly out 2 hours later. And I am concerned. I'm concerned that specifically minority women do not have necessarily the same wealth that other people do have. And I'm concerned that people are going to start taking this into their own hands. We all know what happened before this. There were illegal abortions, and illegal abortions means unsafe abortions. It means women, people that can get pregnant, are going to die. That is exactly what's going to happen. That is not me over-exaggerating. That is exactly what will happen.
For activists on both sides, as they waited for the ruling, the sense of anticipation was almost unbearable. The stakes were that high. When it came, abortion opponents fell to their knees, first in disbelief, and then joy. This may have been the most consequential ruling for a generation.
Supreme Court!
And on the other side of the Great Divide, advocates for women's rights were left in a state of shock and dismay.
Supreme Court!
You don't accept this ruling?
I don't accept this ruling. We're not going to go back. We're not going to go back. What changed since 1973? What changed? A corrupt court. It's a corrupt court. We are the post.
Ecstatic social conservatives conveyed the news back home.
Mary Corbin, how are you feeling today? I am walking on cloud nine. This is the best news we ever could have received.
And spoke of this being a moment of vindication. After the original Roe versus Wade decision of 1973 that made abortion a constitutional right in America. What is your reaction to this ruling?
We are celebratory and just filled with joy. This was a historic opportunity to right the egregious wrong of our day, which is abortion. And the Supreme Court has finally said that there was no invisible right to abortion in the Constitution.
Now, let's go to how societies feel about women killing their newborns or other lumps of cells outside their bodies and their children in general.
A woman is in custody in Sandusky, accused of trying to smother her infant daughter. Police say Ruth Smith of Lansing, Michigan, called them from the parking lot of the Kalahari Water Park Resort and told them that she was trying to kill her daughter. Officers responded and they rescued the 7-month-old baby girl. We just got that 911 call that Smith made to police.
Is your daughter okay? Does she need an ambulance?
I don't know. I tried to suffocate her for 10 minutes, but she wasn't dying, so I took the pillow off. I don't know if she's okay or not.
Smith told officers that she was in a custody dispute with the baby's father and would rather kill the infant than give up custody. She faces an attempted murder charge this morning.
Now a Tennessee Milwaukee mother is in jail accused of trying to smother her own baby.
Investigators say the incident happened inside Children's Hospital. 12 News' Marianne Lyles joins us live from Children's with this story, new at 10.
Well, Kathy Toya, the Sheriff's Department says the Milwaukee mom was arrested here at Children's Hospital after deputies saw the abuse, which was all caught on video. Milwaukee County Sheriff's deputies went to Children's Hospital on Easter. Investigators say in the hospital's pediatric intensive care unit, 24-year-old Erica Gutierrez abused her own 2-month-old baby. The Sheriff's Department says the infant's hospital room was monitored by video cameras and taped Gutierrez pinching her baby's nose and placing her hand over the infant's face, causing her own child to struggle for air. Also in the hospital, investigators say Gutierrez was seen unplugging the 2-month-old's monitoring sensor several times. Neighbors say Gutierrez is married and has other children. The Sheriff's Department says the Milwaukee mom is now charged with 8 counts of felony physical abuse of a child.
5, we are getting our first look at evidence just released in the case of a local mother accused of trying to smother her 3-month-old baby at Nemours Children's Hospital.
Brenna Winter faces a number of charges, including first-degree attempted murder. She allegedly confessed to the crime after nurses stepped in and saved the baby.
In June, Brenna Winter took her 3-month-old daughter baby to the Nemours Children's Clinic Hospital because she was sick. Police say the St. Cloud mother allegedly admitted to trying to suffocate the baby to get attention.
And when they said that they saw me in the video with my hands on her, I was trying to make sure she was breathing. I wasn't trying to stop her from breathing.
That's part of a June 24th interview with Brenna Winter just released. The 18-year-old St. Cloud resident is accused of trying to smother her 3-month-old daughter in the Nemours Children's Hospital. Detectives say on June 6th, Winter was caught on a live video monitoring system at the hospital.
When the code blue was called the first time, and all the nurses and doctors were in there, what were you doing at the time?
I was sitting talking to the social worker.
Detectives say, in fact, she was posting about the incident on Facebook.
There was a picture on Facebook, but I took it down.
Okay, so there was a picture. What did you post?
She had a code blue, and I almost lost her.
Okay, and why did you post that?
Because I was really scared.
Okay. Police say the alarm went off in her room, indicating the baby had stopped breathing. Nurses rushed in to save the baby. The police report also says the live camera showed the baby's mother standing next to the crib with her hands in the crib. The report says a witness in the room said Winter was holding the baby so tightly that her heart rate dropped.
She can't breathe because she's congested. Okay, so the nurses came in. You got a lot of attention that way. Right?
Yeah.
Mother is charged in a case difficult for any parent to hear. Police say she was caught trying to smother her son 4 times.
And each attempt, they say, was made at the Charlotte Hospital where her child was being treated. Now she wants a judge to allow her to spend time with the little boy.
Well, Erica, as you might imagine, the family on the father's side is definitely not happy. They simply don't think it's worth the risk. It's been a year since Maggie Dixon was arrested for trying to kill her 1-year-old son. Since then, she's bonded out of jail, and she now wants to reunite with him.
It's not unusual, and it would be a supervised visit.
Myra Clark is with Community Transitions and helps inmates to get back into society. The family on the father's side is alarmed because Dixon wants to be in her son's life, and they say they are not sure she can ever be trusted again. Police believe she made several attempts on the little boy's life. The child was taken to Levine's Children's Hospital with respiratory issues last June. Nurses then looked on the room monitor and allegedly saw Dixon trying to suffocate her son. Police sources tell us that 4 attempts were made within 15 minutes. Dixon bonded out of jail in November and was ordered to have no contact with her son. According to legal sources, she filed paperwork in Richmond County asking for a supervised visit, which would allow her to see her son with a chaperone.
It's not a supervised visit where the person walks away and comes back later.
Dixon worked as a respiratory therapist at Cape Fear in Fayetteville. How is she doing now? We don't know, but there are several sealed court orders in her criminal file that could possibly shed light on the subject. While Clark believes child involvement is a good thing, she understands the family's concerns.
there are some circumstances where it may not be a good idea.
Well, prosecutors have offered Dixon a deal on the criminal charges. No word on if she is thinking about it.
Sources here at police headquarters are confirming this fragile 4-month-old baby boy is under guard in Children's Hospital ICU tonight, and the mother of that baby is under investigation as to whether or not it was her actions that put him in his current condition. Police are investigating a 22-year-old mom from West Virginia for allegedly trying to smother her 4-month-old baby in UPMC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, where the infant was already a patient. We've learned hospital security officers are the ones who called in Pittsburgh police last night when they suspected possible abuse of the infant. Police confirm that right now the baby is in stable condition in the intensive care unit. Doctors tell police family crisis investigators the baby is suffering from intermittent respiratory distress. Authorities confirm they're investigating whether there was an attempt to smother the child both while there inside the hospital and back home in Costa, West Virginia. Police interviewed both parents at the scene inside the hospital. The 22-year-old mother was then committed to Western Psychiatric Institute and Clinic for evaluation. The infant is now under legal custody of West Virginia's Child Protective Services while remaining in Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh's intensive care. There are no charges under consideration against the baby's father. We've also confirmed that investigators are consulting not only with the Allegheny County DA about criminal charges, but also with authorities in Boone County, West Virginia, about any possible actions to hurt the child there.
This abuse has allegedly been going on since the baby was just 2 months old, and investigators in West Virginia told me today they believe the young mother also tried to suffocate her son at hospitals there at least half a dozen times. The 4-month-old baby is now recovering in the hospital while his 22-year-old mother, Rachel Nelson, is facing charges that she repeatedly tried to smother him.
We don't know what the long-term effects of these assaults are going to be.
As we were first to tell you yesterday, the abuse came to light this week when the baby was brought from West Virginia, where the family lives, to Children's Hospital in Pittsburgh because of several instances where he stopped breathing, even though there didn't appear to be any medical explanation. Investigators say the reason was simple. His mother was squeezing him until he couldn't breathe.
She would compress the child and since smothering, suffocating the child to near death.
It happened twice at Children's Hospital. His father resuscitated him the first time. Doctors saved him the second. Detectives say the mother confessed to the crime, and investigators believe this has been going on since August.
There were several incidents that happened, we believe upwards of possibly 15 combined from West Virginia and Pittsburgh.
The sheriff in Boone County, West Virginia, told me he believes she did the same thing 6 times at hospitals there. After the final time, doctors sent the baby to Pittsburgh. For now, the family is banned from visiting the boy in the hospital. The boy's father told me over the phone he is done with his wife. Authorities in West Virginia say their case is just getting started, but they do expect to file charges against Nelson as well. The boy's father, I can tell you also today, filed for a domestic violence protection order against his wife because of these incidents.
Well, she admitted to trying to smother her own child. Now she's going to spend time behind bars. Rachel Nelson pled guilty in July to harming her 4-month-old son at UPMC Children's Hospital last year. Investigators suspect she also tried to suffocate that child several other times inside her West Virginia home. A judge today sentencing Nelson to 1 to 2 years in jail, followed by 5 years probation.
On social media last month, family and friends shared their concern for a 7-month-old baby girl they thought was struggling in Cook Children's Hospital. But authorities say the only problem with her was her own mom. 22-year-old Shauna Renee Bieber, now in Tarrant County Jail. According to this arrest warrant affidavit, she told doctors her baby was turning blue, but they quickly suspected Bieber was responsible. They placed them in a covert video room where, according to the affidavit, hidden cameras found proof. While holding her baby, Bieber appears to start squeezing or suffocating her baby against her chest until her leg appears to go limp. With oxygen alarms going off, Bieber puts the baby in the crib and stared down at her for 10 seconds before going to get a nurse.
Unfortunately, it's not rare.
Dr. Linda Metcalf with Texas Wesleyan University says Munchausen by proxy is often undiagnosed, a mental disorder where caregivers injure the person they're supposed to protect.
So they're looking for another way to get some attention to fill up their lives with something important. Often they're people that feel like life is out of control.
According to the affidavit, Bieber lost another baby in 2016. She claimed that child came back as a demon and was trying to take her new daughter away. When the baby was finally taken from Bieber, she stayed here at Cook Children's Hospital several days for observation, but nurses said she was healthy, happy, perfectly normal. She is now in the foster system wearing an oxygen monitor, and she has not had any breathing issues. Bieber now faces a felony charge for harming her daughter. What should be a mother's love twisted into something so sad.
This was a cruel, calculated and cynical campaign of child murder involving the smallest and most vulnerable of children, knowing that your actions were causing significant physical suffering and would cause untold mental suffering. You created situations so that collapses or causes of collapses would not be obvious or associated with you. You removed and retained confidential records of events relating to your crimes and checked up on bereaved parents. There was a deep malevolence bordering on sadism in your actions. During the course of this trial, you have coldly denied any responsibility for your wrongdoing and sought to attribute some fault to others. You have no remorse. There are no mitigating factors. In their totality, the offences of murder and attempted murder were of exceptionally high seriousness, and just punishment, according to law, requires a whole life order. Lucy Letby, on each of the 7 offences of murder and the 7 offences of attempted murder, I sentence you to imprisonment for life. Because the seriousness of your offences is exceptionally high, I direct that the early release provisions do not apply. The order of the court, therefore, is a whole life order on each and every offence, and you will spend the rest of your life in prison.
This morning, new details coming from the terrified children in that minivan. Police now say their own mother intended to kill them, plunging the van into the ocean, raising the windows, locking the doors. Eyewitnesses capturing the screams from her 10-year-old son after he fought with his mom and lowered the windows himself.
Are they saying help?
32-year-old Ebony Wilkerson, who's also pregnant, is now behind bars, charged with 3 counts of attempted murder and child abuse.
You're supposed to protect your children at all costs. You're not supposed to be trying to kill your children.
Her children, just 10, 9, and 3, telling police, "Mom tried to kill us," and "Mom was going to drive us in the ocean to die." Her only words, they said, were that they should close their eyes and go to sleep, and that she was taking them to a safer place. Good Samaritans watching the drama unfold rushed to the rescue, pulling the kids and Mom out before the van was enveloped by water.
I'll never get the picture out of my head. That little boy had his outstretched arms saying, "Please help me, our mom's trying to kill us."
When police spoke with Wilkerson, they say she seemed confused, jumping from one religious topic to another. Her kids called her crazy and a lunatic.
It could be a combination of depression, some other mental health issue, and so all of that just may have been too much for her. She will rationalize that they're better off dead than alive.
Wilkerson has not yet entered any plea.
Fayetteville woman is in jail tonight, charged with trying to kill her 5-month-old son. Investigators credit the boy's 18-year-old father with saving the child's life. Right now, Lachey Jordan is being held on a $100,000 bond at the Cumberland County Detention Center. Police say the 20-year-old was in the middle of trying to smother her boy when his father walked in and stopped it and then called 911. Police believe Jordan got upset after a phone conversation.
At some point while she was in the room, she became upset, and I grabbed a pillow, placed it over the child's head, completely over the child's head. Luckily, the husband was there. I acted very quickly, was able to pull her off the child and get the pillow off the child.
Jordan is charged with first-degree attempted murder and misdemeanor child abuse. WNCN's Nate Rogers will have much more tonight at 7.
We have breaking news in East Lyme. We're learning more horrific details after a woman was arrested following an investigation into a child abuse case. East Lyme police charged 36-year-old Katie Ann Nichols with negligent cruelty to persons, risk of injury to a child, along with other charges. Now, the warrant states that officials received a tip from the therapist who treats Nichols, and the therapist stated that Nichols had confessed she slapped her 16-month-old on the belly and also strangled and smothered him. She stated that the last incident happened in February, according to the reports. We're learning that the child had no signs of any trauma and no signs of healing wounds.
What's your name? Andrew Yates. What's the problem? I just need him to come. Is your husband there? No. Well, what's the problem? Well, I need him to come. I need to know why we're coming now. Is the therapist standing next to you? Or she? Or me? Are you having disturbance? Are you ill or what? Yes, I'm ill. You need an ambulance? No, I need a police officer.
We're going to bring you some breaking news now out of the Clear Lake area. Houston police say they were called to check out a welfare.
Andrew Yates has not been charged just yet. We do know that within the last couple of hours, it happened in the house you see behind me here. The father is a NASA engineer. Police say while he was at work, his wife drowned their 5 children.
You loved your children?
Yeah, it's not in the right way, though.
Five precious children, one struggling mother. What Andrea Yates did on June 20th, 2001 inside her home stunned the nation. The then 36-year-old mother called 911 herself to report she had drowned her children. The years that followed were no less dramatic. An overturned conviction based on false testimony and a second trial that sent Andrea to a state hospital where she remains today. All of it shined a light on mental illness and exposed Andrea's demons that led to her children's deaths.
Andrea Pia Kennedy was born on July 2, 1964 in Houston, Texas, and married Russell Yates on April 17, 1993. The couple's first child, Noah, was born on February 1994. 3 more boys followed in 1995, 1997, and February 1999. Later that year, Yates attempted suicide twice and was diagnosed with psychosis and postpartum depression. She was also advised not to have any more children. However, in November 2000, she gave birth to a daughter. Several months later, she had another breakdown and was hospitalized. After her husband, a former NASA engineer, left for work on the morning of June 20, 2001, Andrea drowned her 5 children in the bathtub of the family's suburban Houston home. Afterward, she called 911 and then phoned her husband to tell him he needed to return home immediately. Police found the body of the Yates' oldest son, Noah, age 7, face down in the tub. Yates had placed the bodies of her 4 younger children, John, 5, Luke, 3, Paul, 2, and Mary, 6 months, next to each other in a bed and covered them with a sheet. She confessed her actions to police and later made statements that she heard voices and believed she was saving her children's souls by killing them. After her arrest, she told the jail psychiatrist that her children were not righteous and let them stumble. She also added that they were doomed to perish in the fires of hell. At her 2002 trial, Yates' attorneys argued that she was insane, while the prosecution charged she failed to meet Texas' definition of insanity because she was able to tell right from wrong. After deliberating for less than 4 hours, a jury found Yates guilty, rejecting her insanity defense, and she was sentenced to life in prison. In 2005, a Texas appeals court reversed the conviction and granted Yates a new trial after it was learned that prosecution witness Dr. Park Dietz, a forensic psychiatrist, gave erroneous testimony that had influenced the jury. On July 26, 2006, A jury found Yates not guilty by reason of insanity. Since that time, she has been committed to a state mental hospital in Texas. Russell Yates was supportive of his wife in the aftermath of the murders, blaming her behavior on severe mental illness and also criticizing her doctors for failing to properly treat her condition. In turn, he was criticized for being controlling and for leaving his wife unsupervised at the time she killed their children, when he had been advised not to do so. Russell Yates filed for divorce in 2004 and remarried 2 years later. He had a son with his second wife. However, she filed for divorce according to court documents. In January of 2007, she was transferred to Kerrville State Hospital, a low-security mental facility in Kerrville, Kerr County, Texas. To this day, even more than 13 years later, Andrea still resides there.
On June 20th, 2001, Yates summoned her children into the bathroom, where she drowned them in the tub. 4 boys, 1 6-month-old girl. In a December 2001 interview with 60 Minutes, her then husband, Rusty, said mental illness drove Andrea Yates to murder their 5 children.
You know, the person that drowned those children is not Andrea. If your brain's sick, then you can think things that aren't real.
Andrea Pia Yates, guilty of capital murder as charged in the indictment.
During her first trial in 2002, Yates was found guilty, sentenced to life in prison. But that verdict was overturned due to one witness who gave false testimony. Yates was eventually found not guilty by reason of insanity at a 2006 retrial.
It was 10 years ago this week that Andrea Yates was convicted of one of the most horrific crimes imaginable. You may recall this story. She drowned her 5 young children in their Houston home.
Yates was later found to be mentally ill, suffering from postpartum psychosis. After more than a decade now, we're told she may be let out of custody later this year.
Bringing up the rear.
Family home videos show no apparent hint of turmoil within the Yates home. Andrea Yates was described as a loving mother of 5 who homeschooled her children. But after the birth of her 4th child in 1999, Yates began to show signs of depression. Twice, she tried to kill herself. Yates was hospitalized, treated for postpartum depression. Initially, medication seemed to help. But after the birth of her 5th child, Mary, in 2000, the anxiety appeared to increase.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of her children, Michael 3 and Alexander 14 months.
Tomorrow marks a somber anniversary in South Carolina. It's been 25 years since Susan Smith killed her 2 young sons by strapping them inside her car and rolling it into John D. Long Lake in Union County.
Now that night, she told police that a black man carjacked her and her vehicle with her sons still inside. As you heard, 3-year-old Michael and 1-year-old Alex. After 9 days, though, Susan Smith finally confessed, saying she did it herself. Smith is now serving a life sentence at Leith Correctional in Greenwood and is eligible for parole, believe it or not, in 2024.
The case received national attention.
Susan
Smith and her then husband David appeared on national news pleading for their boy's safe return.
I know right here what the truth is. I can see from their side why they have to do the things they have to do. But the Lord and myself both know the truth. I did not have anything to do with the abduction of my children.
Well, nothing she said there was true. The boys were found in their mom's car inside John D. Long Lake, like Darcy said, and her husband was not involved in the crime.
This morning, we're shining a spotlight on the case of Susan Smith. She was convicted back in 1995 for the murders of her 2 young boys. And next year, the murder mom is up for parole, but her family is not offering much support, saying they're not interested in helping her. And her ex-husband, David, says he plans to file an affidavit urging the parole board to keep her locked up. Wow, she's not getting support from her family. The ones that used to love her, well, she's got lots of folks that love her right now. She's been corresponding with about a half a dozen suitors. One man calling Smith, "Dearest Pookie," sent this letter in August. "Been thinking of you and miss you so much. Hoping I can do something for you soon. Anyways, feels like it's been so long since we talked." Later concluding, "Love you so much, it hurts. Your Pookie." Another man allegedly offered Smith a place to live if she is indeed granted parole.
My whole life, even as a child, all I really thought about, I used to carry dolls around on a pillow, and I wanted to be a mom.
What Diane Downs wanted more than anything else was to have children. She got her wish, but her dream turned into a twisted tragedy when she was sentenced to life for shooting her children because her boyfriend didn't like kids. Even today, 5 years later, her former husband would like to see her pay the ultimate price.
Executed. That's what I was hoping for. That's what I still feel that they should have done that, you know. We'd all be better off.
But it was the children who would pay for what Diane wanted.
Diane's the type of woman who I think could cut your throat and then sit down and have lunch next to your body.
I wouldn't walk in there and say, this weird person came up out of nowhere and shot us for no reason and just left. I mean, that's not a believable story. I could have, if I had done this, I could have come up with a believable story. It really happened.
It was back in May of 1983, next to this creek, alongside this isolated country road outside of Springfield, Oregon, that this bizarre and tragic crime was committed. It was around 9:45 in the evening when Diane Downs said a man flagged down her car and demanded her keys. When she refused, he pulled out a pistol and shot her and her 3 small children.
I could smell the blood, I could smell the gunpowder, it was just a really, really horrible feeling.
But Diane says she somehow managed to escape and rushed to a nearby hospital. 7-year-old Cheryl was dead on arrival. 8-year-old Christy was shot twice in the chest. 3-year-old Danny was shot in the back and lay paralyzed. Diane, however, received only wounds to her forearm.
It was all wrong. From the beginning, it was wrong.
Detective Doug Welch was one of the first officers at the hospital that night, and although he didn't realize it at the time, this case would consume his life for many months to come.
Here was a woman who was completely apathetic about the welfare of her kids. She was just emotionally flat and preoccupied with something else.
That evening and the next day, police were out in full force, looking for any clues that would lead them to the man that Diane claimed did the shooting, later to be known as the bushy-haired stranger.
I'm throwing the keys, okay? I'm throwing the keys.
4 days later, as one child was being buried, the other 2 still in intensive care, Diane reenacted for police what happened that night. Besides wondering why a woman with children would stop her car and get out for a strange man, detectives couldn't help but notice Diane's seemingly carefree attitude.
I just hit my cast. Started the car and left. The car door shut itself. God dang. Sure, I could sit here and cry and be all upset. And what's it going to prove? It proves nothing. I am who I am, and I can't prove that I'm anybody other than what I am.
Diane was brought up in a strict religious family in Phoenix. She graduated from high school with straight A's. She married Steve Downs at 17, and almost immediately they had children.
I got pregnant when I wasn't allowed to, and I'm not saying he forbade me to get pregnant, but I didn't consult him. I wanted to have children, and so I got pregnant without asking permission.
Well, once she had the kids, you know, it was another story, you know. Well, she treated them like crap, you know. She really didn't treat them very good.
A new mom behind bars accused of suffocating her 6-day-old baby.
Police say she told them she did it because she was jealous.
The dad says the mother is innocent. And before she was brought here to the jail, he told the judge that none of this made any sense. Here, this is a picture of her. This is 36-year-old Nina Koistinen, and she's being held on a $1 million bond. She is the mother of 9. Detectives say back on April 8th, she pinched her 6-day-old daughter's nose, smothered her, and did not let go until the baby stopped breathing. Her husband told the judge she has mental health issues and said the timeline for the crime does not even add up.
She has been the greatest mother. We've been married 15 years, that never once has hurt any of our kids. I seen her deteriorating the last 2 days, and she needs serious mental help.
And police say she admitted to killing the baby because she was jealous of the attention the child was getting. And CPS apparently got involved with this family a while back after a car accident that appeared to be intentional, and that is where the mother said that she wanted her kids to go to heaven. Stephen, Katie, such a sad story. The baby's name, by the way, Maya.
So sad. I mean, there's no way around it. It is just a heartbreaking story for the whole family. Thank you, Adam.
It's a haunting photograph, a mother at the grave of her little girl being comforted by a ghost-like image of her daughter. But the mother ended up being charged with the little girl's murder. And now everyone, from the photographer to other family members, are furious. Here's Stephen Fabian.
They are haunting photos. A mother at a gravesite being comforted by the angelic, ghost-like image of her deceased daughter. But the photos took on a whole new meaning when the mother, Jeannie Diddy, was charged with beating her 2-year-old daughter, Macy Grace, to death.
I got to imagine you're angry. I got to imagine this feels like a gut punch.
It is, and we're outraged.
To say that we are devastated, that's not even a big enough word.
Michelle Smith is Macy's great aunt. Tina Goodwin is the child's grandmother.
We will fight to our last breath until this baby gets the justice that she deserves.
Jeannie Diddy was a soldier at Fort Bragg. She was also a competitive bodybuilder. When she brought her daughter to the hospital, she claimed the little girl had choked on a banana. But suspicions were immediately raised because the toddler was covered in bruises.
I looked at her and said, "What happened to this baby?" She looked at me and told me, "Don't you start on me too."
Listen to this video Diddy posted on her Facebook page.
What do you think you're doing on my nightstand? Macy Grace, you want to get grounded? Like a spanking?
After 2 days in the hospital, Macy was taken off of life support. And just 1 month later, Jeannie hired photographer Sonny Joe to take those haunting photos.
She used my work to make people think that she's innocent.
She thought that it made her look like she was a grieving mother, that she was a good mother, that Macy was her whole life.
Jeannie Diddy was charged with first-degree murder and child abuse, but her trial ended in a hung jury, with jurors voting 10-2 for conviction. Now, just before Thanksgiving, Diddy was released on $25,000 bail while she awaits her second trial. She's out there walking the streets. You know, what's going through your mind?
I'm worried that she is going to hurt someone else.
I just don't understand.
A family desperate for answers. 2 small children killed during a visit to South Florida.
She was like hysterical, kind of in shock.
Now their own mother is in custody as we learn the disturbing details about their deaths.
This was the last person I think would do something to my son, to her daughter.
And now let's take one more look at those children tonight. The little boy, only 7 months old. His sister, only 3 years old.
It is so tragic. Police say their mother admitted to killing them. Tonight, she's in jail as we learn more about their short lives.
After this woman confessed to police to killing her 2 children, she told them she used a bed sheet to do it. Now, keep in mind, this family is from Philadelphia, so they were just here visiting on a trip. We talked to her husband there, who says he never saw this one coming.
When you hear something like that over the phone, you usually get that no.
Anthony Singleton cannot believe his wife, Sophia Hines, is in jail for the murders of her 2 children.
She was really good with the kids. This was the last person I think would do something to my son, to her daughter.
The family is from Philadelphia. Our ABC News affiliate there caught up with Singleton, who says he didn't even know Hines was in Florida.
When she was calling me, she would say, "I'm in New York and I'm okay. Hurry up back." I mean, she left without even telling that. And when I found out, I had to call down Florida, and they confirmed it.
St. Leo Hines, a 7-month-old baby boy the newlyweds shared together, and his 3-year-old sister, Ariel Hines, were both found dead in this Miramar home Wednesday evening. When officers arrived, Hines told them she suffocated the children one at a time.
When fire rescue arrived, they pronounced the 2 children dead.
A line straight from the arrest report reads, the defendant admitted to obtaining a sheet from the bed and holding it over the mouth of victim.
I have no idea. I didn't see it.
A violent act, Singleton says, is out of character for Hines and something he never saw coming.
She was his. He was my husband and wife, and this is the last thing I would expect. This is the very, very last thing.
A local woman accused of smothering her baby daughter is found competent to stand trial. Investigators say Sarah Lynn Walden was on drugs when she rolled over on 3-month-old Rihanna while sleeping last October. The girl died 5 days later at the hospital. After reviewing a competency evaluation, a Butler County judge ruled the case can indeed move forward.
This mother has been charged with strangling her 3 young children. Her lawyers blame postpartum depression, and her husband is standing by her. But prosecutors say she knew exactly what she was doing.
The Plymouth County District Attorney now saying a mother will be charged with murder in the deaths of 2 of her children. That new information coming late today along with this. The mother has been identified as 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy. News Center 5 has learned she is a nurse at MGH. Officials say it appears she strangled her children, killing her 5-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son. And her 3rd child, a 7-month-old boy, is hospitalized tonight. The DA adding Clancy is in the hospital herself after attempting to take her own life. He says when she recovers, she will be arraigned on those murder charges.
4:30, turning to a tragedy in Massachusetts where a former Connecticut woman, Lindsay Clancy, is accused of killing her 3 children, and it's bringing a lot of attention to mental health. A candlelight vigil was held last night for the Clancy family. Police say she strangled her 3 children before trying to take her own life on Tuesday. It was reported she was allegedly struggling with postpartum psychosis, a serious condition that can cause delusions and hallucinations. She was on leave from her job as a nurse at Mass General.
Several people stopping by to leave flowers today at the Duxbury home, where the DA's office says 2 young children were killed and a 7-month-old baby, also hurt, is in the hospital. Their mother, identified as 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy, attempted to commit suicide by jumping out of a window. The DA is now seeking murder charges against her.
Probable cause, and today are seeking and obtaining an arrest warrant out of Plymouth District Court, charging 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy, the mother of these children, with their homicides.
The DA says the children, a 5-year-old girl named Cora and 3-year-old boy named Dawson, were strangled.
Preliminarily, it appears the children were strangled.
How could this happen? A mom accused of strangling her 3 kids.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Your Honor. 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy spoke from her hospital bed at her bail hearing. Police say she tried to jump out a 2nd-floor window after strangling her children in the basement of her home.
Party off the top floor of the house.
She is now paralyzed from the waist down. Clancy was a labor and delivery nurse. She even made videos for newborn mothers.
So there are a lot of benefits for both mother and baby.
Her lawyers say she was suffering from postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. But prosecutors say she was clear thinking and planned the murders.
She used Apple Maps to make sure she would have enough time to strangle each child before her husband returned from where she had sent him. The defendant did not take advantage of the situation when her husband left the home that night. She created the situation.
The prosecutor said Clancy used an exercise band to strangle 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan.
She had to strangle each of them to unconsciousness and then make sure the bands were squeezing their little necks for several minutes.
Clancy's defense attorney says she was seeking help that did not come in time.
She was having bad thoughts. She was having worsening depression. This is clearly a tragedy.
Clancy's husband, Patrick, says he forgives his wife. And so does this man. You might recall Russell Yates. He's the husband of the notorious Andrea Yates, who drowned their 5 children in a bathtub 22 years ago.
The next step of forgiveness, I'd say, is understanding it's a sickness. Like in this case, you can do all you can at home, but you really can't protect yourself from a psychotic person at home. I mean, they get up in the middle of the night and, light the house on fire.
George Parnham was Andrea Yates' attorney.
To come to a realization that you took the lives of the people that you gave life to, they have to live with this for the rest of their lives.
Dr. Catherine Berndorf treats women with postpartum depression.
She was not in her, quote, right mind
when she made those decisions. She believed that by killing her kids, by killing herself, that she was probably helping them. She was not in a sane state of mind.
Dr. Berndorf says some patients will need to be medicated.
For postpartum psychosis, we often use at minimum 2 medications, a mood stabilizer and an antipsychotic. Those are 2 serious medications that work very well.
Lindsay Clancy's defense attorney also says she was over-medicated, taking 12 different drugs over a 4-month period.
Patrick Clancy says losing his children has been unimaginably painful. The oldest, just 5 years old. But he also spoke of Lindsay's deteriorating condition and said nothing matched the intense love the real Lindsay had for her kids.
This morning, the husband of the Massachusetts woman accused of killing their 3 children says he forgives her and is asking others to do the same. Patrick Clancy making a heartfelt statement on GoFundMe, saying, quote, "The real Lindsay was generously loving and caring towards everyone, me, our kids, family, friends, and her patients." Our affiliate, WCVB, spoke to a family member.
They were just beautiful, beautiful children.
According to police, Patrick Clancy called 911 Tuesday after his wife Lindsay attempted suicide. First responders then found his kids, ages 5, 3, and 8 months old, unconscious inside the home with traumatic injuries. 2 of the children died that same day, the 8-month-old a few days later. Lindsay is currently hospitalized, facing murder and assault charges.
And authorities haven't commented on Lindsay's mental health, but say everything is being looked into. It's also important to note that in the U.S., we don't have any particular legislation that addresses postpartum psychosis, George.
Okay, Mona, thanks very much. This has been our chief medical correspondent, Dr. Jen Ashen. Mona had an important distinction there, postpartum psychosis, postpartum depression.
Yeah, so first some medical terminology, George. Psychosis, the definition is impaired judgment, impaired reality testing. It is rare, 1 in 500 to 1 in 1,000. And it is a true medical emergency. This is mental illness. It can present with signs and symptoms like confusion, hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, obsessive thoughts, and then, of course, tragically, attempts to harm oneself or the baby. This is a completely different entity than postpartum depression.
And postpartum depression, far more common.
Absolutely more common, occurs typically more slowly, whereas psychosis appears acutely, days to even weeks. Postpartum depression can be much more gradual, weeks to months.
And what are the warning signs?
And the signs and symptoms of that, more along the lines of depression for anyone else. Appetite changes, a loss of interest, panic, crying, fatigue, anxiety, a fear of being alone with the baby. That also can be a medical emergency. But again, they're really distinct entities. And George, I have to tell you, I've been an OBGYN for 22 years. I've never seen a case of postpartum psychosis. I've seen many, many cases of postpartum depression.
So many women go through a lot after having a baby, anything from postpartum depression to postpartum anxiety and a host of other things. What exactly is postpartum psychosis and how does it differ from those other ailments?
Absolutely. So postpartum psychosis can come on pretty abruptly during the postpartum period. And it differs from those other disorders where there are more depressive symptoms in that, like you said, it has these psychotic features, delusions, paranoia. Women can have frightening beliefs about wanting to harm their children. Thankfully, it is fairly uncommon, occurring in about 1 in 500 births. And I would contrast that with postpartum depression, which occurs typically in 1 in 7 women during the postpartum period.
What have you gathered so far? Women's lives matter more than both men's lives and children's lives. The murder of a man or a child isn't as serious as the murder of a woman.